We have a lease, and so our lease is around $8,000 a month.
Whoa, that's expensive.
Yeah, San Francisco is wild.
Yeah, the lease is making more than each of you individually. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. I just wanted to give a shout out for anyone who is interested in being a guest. It is completely anonymous, so we'll let you choose a fake name and we will hide identifiable information so you can come on the show and share freely. It is a full hour to an hour and a half with me, Barbara, and we'll do a deep dive on your finances, where you're doing well, where maybe you're struggling, and come up with a game plan for how to reach your financial goals. To be a guest, you just need to put a submission in either on Instagram or on our website, www.futurerichpodcast.com. And you just need to be a female. As we've said before, this podcast is produced with Amy, Alex, and myself, so an all-female team, and our goal is to help improve financial education amongst women, so that is why we interview women about their finances. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in being a guest, please put in a submission on our website, www.futurerichpodcast.com, or send us a message on Instagram. Hello, and welcome to Financials Podcast Future Rich. I'm your host, Barbara Ginty, and I'm also a CFP, which is a certified financial planner. And I am here with my guest today, Samantha. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So why don't you fill me and also the listeners in, tell us a little bit about yourself, how old you are, where you live, what you do for work, what you make, all that jazz.
I am 36 and I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I run a business with a business partner. We teach youth dance, and I've been doing that for 4 years. And I'm married, and that's a little bit about me.
Oh, wonderful. And what got you into entrepreneurship? Where did you go? How did you get into owning your own business?
So in 2020, when I was stuck at home, I started to evaluate long-term or longevity in my career as a teacher, and had a friend who was doing the same thing. And so we decided to try to start our own business doing what we love. And that's how it started.
Amazing. Okay, so you've been doing it for a bit. And then how does it work? So you're married. So did you, because as a teacher, you usually have pretty good benefits.
Yeah, but I didn't get those benefits because I was not a teacher through the Unified School District or a private,
Okay.
just like an after-school recreational activity teacher. So outside organizations.
Okay, so you didn't have, it didn't come always with benefits.
Right.
Got it. Okay, so that wasn't really then a change, because that's usually a big change, switching from, maybe working for somebody or an organization and then going out on your own, is the lack of health insurance.
Right. I had health insurance through my previous employer, and I had like a 403B. So
Okay.
the timing worked out because I left that employer and got married within the same year.
Okay.
Kind of like hopped on to my husband's benefits for insurance.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Amazing. Because that's usually the biggest hurdle, I think, with owning a business, is like the benefits component of it. It's not always as easy to figure out.
Right.
So amazing. Okay, so you had a lot of life changes then. Okay, so you left your one career path, started a business, and got married.
Yes.
Amazing. And what does your husband do?
He works at a university in building or facilities management, and it's a unionized job. And he's been there for about 8 years now.
Amazing. Okay, and then why don't you talk to me a little bit about like income and how you split that with your husband?
Yeah, so we keep our finances separate right now. And then we kind of split our rent, utilities, and like entertainment, dining out purchases each month.
Okay.
So I, my business also, like, we just started putting ourselves on payroll this past year. So now I
Okay.
have kind of a better idea of what, I can plan for each month. And I think we're going to be moving a little bit more of our pay structure to payroll, just to keep it pretty consistent throughout the year.
Yep. And so did you hire a payroll company to do
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yeah, we have a payroll processing
Okay.
company, but my business partner kind of handles the payroll.
Perfect. And then, so how did you figure out the pay structure? Do you have like and then what happens at the end of the year? Is there a profit left over at the end of the year and you also get distributions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. We put ourselves on salary last year,
Okay.
and then
And how
this
much is that for
the
each?
salary is 58,000.
Okay. And you each get the same?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then we were doing distributions based on like the actual number of classes we teach. So kind of like an
Mm-hmm.
hourly pay structure, and just distributing that every 3 months. But this year, we can't actually do that because we're going to be filing as an S corporation. We're an
Mm-hmm.
LLC now,
Okay.
but as an S corporation, our distributions have to be equal to the 50-50 shares of the business.
Correct.
So we're switching it and putting ourselves as hourly employees in payroll also.
Okay.
So that will kind of vary based on the actual classes we teach. And then at the end of the year, we'll do a distribution of 50-50,
Yep.
based on the profits.
Perfect. That sounds like a great plan. So the you're gonna have you both have your base salary for running the business, right? And then you're divvying up based on how many. So she might teach more classes, or you might teach more classes. So then you're doing that on an hourly basis to compensate for whoever has more classes. And
Right.
then perfect. And then at the end of the year, whatever the profit is left over, then you'll take an S corp distribution, which you're correct has to be based on percentage of ownership, so it would be split evenly.
That's correct.
Amazing. And then I'm just curious, what did you start? Where did you start with the business with revenue versus where you are today?
Um, oh, that's a tough one.
Oh, we started at zero, right? Probably.
We started at zero. We started as kind of like teaching in alternative spaces. So
Okay.
fortunately, our first year, we didn't have to expend a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were able to kind of build a little bit of money before we took on a lease for a building.
Okay. That's great. So that was smart to do it that way. So then you knew you had the revenue to support the lease payment.
Yes.
Is there much more? What's your overhead look like? So you have a lease.
We have a lease. And so our lease is around $8,000 a month.
Whoa, that's expensive.
Yeah, San Francisco is wild.
Yeah, the lease is making more than each of you individually, roughly, for salary at 80,000. Yeah, that is expensive. Okay, so that's a big chunk.
Hmm. Yeah, that's our biggest cost each month.
Wow.
So our business started with around like under 200,000 in the first year.
Okay.
That was when just her and I were working.
Yep.
Uh, we now have hired a few employees, and
Okay.
okay, this year we are up to about 400,000.
So far for the year,
This was for last year, so
for
I'm
last year,
2020.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And what are you projecting for this year?
For this year, we were hoping to be around 500,000 or between
Amazing.
400, 500.
That's fantastic. That's very impressive.
Thank you. It's all new for us, this whole business thing. And so every time we like make a decision, we're like, I don't know if it's right or who we talk to, but it's been really fun.
Good. I'm glad. I would say probably you just want to make sure that you have a good accountant, right? Because it's a business.
Hmm.
And then I think it's also always nice to have other, don't have to necessarily be good friends, but a support system of other business owners you can ask questions to. I think that's always helpful when you have other people that are in a similar boat, kind of learn from their experiences as well.
Yeah. Now, we don't meet with an accountant regularly. We have a tax preparer. Uh,
Okay.
do you recommend like meeting more often with the accountant?
I would say, yeah, as your revenue gets a bit bigger, I think it'd be worth. So you have a tax preparer, do you have a CPA?
I believe he is a CPA.
CPA. Yeah, I would say it's probably worthwhile to meet. Here's what I would say. When you meet with the accountant in, we'll just say for this year, so we're in 2025, when you meet with them in 2026 to file your tax return, your corporate tax return, there's nothing they can do about the prior year, right? The year is ended. So
Uh-huh.
the opportunity to make adjustments or changes, or to say, it looks like we're going to have a really good year this year, you know, the opportunity to do that and make an adjustment is in 2025 before the year ends.
Okay.
So I would, because as you continue to make more money, you want to just make sure you're being strategic, and maybe you have profit, but you do need to reinvest and maybe build something out in this space. And so your accountant could give you, a CPA could give you advice. So, well, that would be a good project to complete in November so that we don't see that cash on the books for December, right? Versus
Right.
the project doesn't get done till January, and then you paid all these taxes, even though that money, because what happens is when the year ends, even if you'd saved, let's say you're saving $25,000 for a build out in this space. But if the year ends, you're going to pay tax on that because that expense hasn't occurred yet. So maybe then meeting with the accountant would say, well, let's get that expense paid for, and get that money off the books before end of year because you're going to end up paying tax on it, and then you don't have the full 25 you need. Stuff like that, just to make sure
Right.
you're being strategic.
Yeah, that makes sense. We put ourselves on payroll because we had a year before that we were not on payroll and tax season came around and it was like a big
Big
surprise.
mess. Yeah, I mean, I don't say there's a hard part about running the business. You want to be proactive, right? Because if
Mhm.
you meet with the accountant and they're like, well, this is what you owe, there's like nothing you can do about it. You just do a better job next year. So by meeting with your accountant, I personally usually meet with my accountant in September or October to say, here's where I am for the year. What do you think? Should I do anything different? It also gives you preparation if your year's going well to know, oh, okay, we're going to owe more tax, right? So like maybe we up payroll, or maybe instead of the S corp distribution, you give yourself a payroll bonus because of where the taxes are going to fall, stuff like that. But that
Mhm.
has to be done before the end of the year.
Got it.
And not all accountants call and say, hey, it's September, October. I know your business is doing well. We should probably chat.
Yeah.
So that would be my business owner advice, not my CFP advice, but like having run a business, that's the practice I've gotten into is I meet with the accountant closer to the end of the year, where I still have like the fourth quarter really. Um, so I can make adjustments based on how the year has gone.
Okay. That sounds great.
Yeah. Because the goal as a business continues to grow, right? And so you just want to make sure you're adjusting because every year it looks a little different.
Yeah. I guess that could go into a question I had about retirement planning for
Sure.
someone running a business. We haven't implemented it yet, but we were talking about opening an SEP IRA.
Mm-hmm.
With I think you can do one when you have employees called a multiple participant IRA.
So yes, there is a SEP. Usually, how many employees do you have?
We have five, but they're very part-time employees. They only work like uh, 5 to 10 hours a week. And our employee turnover is pretty high. Um,
Okay,
we hire a lot of people who are in college and then they might leave us when they graduate.
when they graduate. So, okay, so what I'll say is generally speaking, and the part time is going to throw me here a little. Um, Generally, when you have employees, you don't do a SEP because of the contribution, because you have to contribute the same
Hmm.
equally. So obviously that's fine for you and your partner, right? You're splitting everything 50-50. So if you're going to do, 10,000 for you, she gets 10,000. I don't think you'd want to do 10,000 for the 5 part-time people.
Mm-hmm.
So generally it does include the part-time. There's like criteria. So it gets a little bit more complicated. Let's see. So if they've received at least $750 in compensation from the business, these are a little bit older based on the year. So there's some more rules with it. I would say, here's what I would say. There's the two popular plans for a business owner are going to be a SEP, or it's going to be a simple IRA to start. And so if everyone listening, you're saying, well, there's a 401k, and there is, but I'm sure you looked into it and it's a lot more complex, onerous, and expensive than these two other options that are both basically a SEP IRA or a simple IRA. So what I would do, this is once again where the accountant comes into play. I would find out what's your best option based on your staffing.
Okay.
That's what you're going to have to choose. So if you can do the SEP IRA and you're able to meet the rules of the SEP IRA, right? Because these are retirement plans, so they're for small business owners, so they're not as complex as 401k or 403b, but there's still rules. So you have to be able to meet all the rules, and if you can meet the rules and do the SEP, that's your best option. If you can't meet all the rules, then meaning that if it's 10,000 for you and 10,000 for your business partner and 10,000 for every employee, that's a lot, right?
Right.
And that doesn't really make sense. As you'd probably say, instead of us spending 50,000 for the employees, we're just not going to do it. That's what happens. Then you would look at the simple IRA. And the simple IRA is the workplace plan for small business owners when you have employees,
Okay.
because the contribution obligation on the employer is significantly lower. So I would sit down. You said you have high turnover, so that would impact it, and how much they're getting paid, how many hours they're working. I don't have the SEP eligibility off the top of my head, but I would definitely sit down with your accountant and say, we want to do a retirement plan, and the two you should consider are simple IRA and SEP IRA. And then
Okay.
whatever's in your best interest from an obligation standpoint.
Got it. That's very helpful.
Yeah, because you're under 25 employees, so you could put away the simple. I know the simple off the top of my head because it's exactly what we do. And so if you don't participate, if the employees don't participate, they have to be offered it. If they don't participate in it, then you don't contribute.
Right.
So if you have, if there's someone's taking this job for the semester, they're probably not going to sign up for the retirement plan. You might have a couple who do, which is fine. They'll get their account and you'll contribute 3% to whatever they contribute. But that's not as big as matching what you and your business owner partner do.
Yeah. The reason we started talking about this is because we received an email from California about the California retirement plan, that now we're required to enroll in that. And then our employees have the option to either put some of their money towards it or not. But as business owners, you can't be enrolled in it. So then we were talking about, oh, well, what can we do that, helps us and our employees?
Yeah, that's the fun part about owning a business. They're always like, okay, we're going to do all this for the employees. You're like, oh, yeah, great. And they're like, oh, not you. You're not
Yeah.
allowed in there. You don't get that. Not for you. So, yes, the simple IRA is really popular when you have employees because you're not contributing unless the employee is contributing, right? So it shows that that person's interested and wants to participate. Great, I'm going to give you a match. You don't want to sign up? That's not a problem, but I'm not going to contribute for you. The SEP is you're contributing whether or not. They do not have to participate for you to contribute. You're obligated to contribute to them.
Right. There was
the big difference.
The simple, someone mentioned like the simple is not as flexible. Like it has to be the same every year.
It works just like a 401k, except that the amounts are lower. So in 2025, the simple IRA limit 16,500. You can do additionally, I think, a little bit more if you're under 25 employees, and then that's what you and your business partner could do, and then you get a 3% company match. And you don't have to do 16,500 because we're each going to do 10,000. You match it at 3%. So it works like that. The SEP though, it's a percentage of that you're allowed to do. It's a much higher contribution amount that you're allowed, But whatever you write a check for yourself, you're going to write a check for your employee.
Not like a percentage of what they make. It's a just
I'll double check on it for you. The people that we do have the SEPs, they do equal amounts.
okay.
But this once again is where if you're paying for a CPA, you sit down and say, here's our employee structure. Here's what they're making. Here's what what we're making. What's in our best interest? Is it the SEP or is it the simple?
Okay. Got it.
Because for instance, for our business owner clients, like I don't calculate the SEP. Their accountant tells them what they're eligible to do and that the SEP is in their best interest and they do it. But most of our business owners that do SEPs have either one like really critical employee where it's them and this one employee who runs their business essentially, or they're solo business owners with just 1099 workers.
Yeah.
So, but it's worth considering both and just seeing what's going to be in your best interest.
Okay.
Because if you end up having like a good employee who's going to stay, right? Like maybe someone like a studio manager where they might be, and then you have more of the turnover, then yeah, I guess I don't understand the employee structure as much and how much the turnover is, but we're both available. And either one, you can choose whatever one's going to work the best, but it is good to have a retirement plan in place for yourselves. That's one thing that you don't get as a business owner, right? You have to establish it in order to have that retirement benefit. And it's worthwhile to have a retirement plan set up as a business owner so that you have something at the end of ownership that you've set aside for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're hoping for. And I had heard that the SEP, like an employee is not eligible until they've worked for your business for 3 years, or you can kind of set that guideline. And so that's where we were thinking like, oh, if we have employees who work for us for 3-4 years and then, they turn over, this could be a possibility for us, but I'll double check on it.
Yeah, I would definitely sit down with the accountant. And that's where if you know that your average employee is like under a year for sure, and it's really just going to be the two of you, then maybe the SEP is in your best interest if you can set those eligibility rules.
Mm-hmm.
But you just have to make sure, so the simple, the SEP, a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, they all have their own rules, and you just have to make sure that you are following the rules, right, for each one of the plans. And so the other thing, depending on is besides the workplace plans, you could always do if you don't get to it this year or it doesn't maybe make sense this year and the account says start it next year, you can also just do a traditional IRA or depending on your income, because you're married filing joint, a Roth IRA as well. Those are not related to workplace plans or business ownership.
Yes. So I have that. And I'm trying to max it out every year.
Good. You should. That's excellent.
That's my like big thing about what can I do next to prepare myself for retirement, because I have a Roth and I have a traditional IRA. I like took my previous 403b and rolled it over into a traditional IRA.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about that? So what do you have saved up so far?
So my traditional IRA is at 1,000. Is at $106,000.
$106,000. Oh, fantastic.
And then my Roth is at 33,000.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. And what about, do you have an emergency fund?
I do have an emergency fund. So I have a savings account where you can like allocate, it's one big account, but then you can kind of look at it in different buckets.
Perfect.
And so my savings is split into like a business savings and emergency savings.
Okay.
And I have 30,000 in each of those. So I have 60,000 for savings.
Perfect. I think it's great that you have a separate emergency fund for the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Our thought was like, with both of us being women and potentially, having family plans in the future, we wanted to set aside some money. So if we're, our business is a little slower because we're not actively able to work, some money set aside for that.
Perfect. Yeah, that's smart. Because does California offer any sort of family medical leave for business owners?
You know, we haven't gotten a clear answer on that.
Okay.
Because we're paying ourselves on payroll now, I think we're paying into disability.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we could use that for family leave or if there's a separate thing for family leave.
Yeah, it would be worth looking into for New York State, because obviously some of this stuff is state specific. But for New York State, they passed an act called the FMLA, and it's 12 weeks up to 70% of a salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, so we started paying that, started paying that for my employees right away. Once it came out, it was mandatory. You do an inventory of your employees, you pay, there's a calculation and you pay for it. And so then I called my insurance person and I was like, am I covered under that? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, well, could I get covered under it? And they're like, oh, it's a separate policy. So then for like an entire year or two, I had to have a separate policy, the FMLA for business owners and then regular FMLA. And then supposedly they combined it. Like you didn't have to have separate. So it's worth investigating because FMLA usually, once again, this is state specific, so I don't know for sure in California, would pay a little bit more than disability. So,
okay.
But sometimes when you're the business owner, it's a separate policy. So whatever you're paying in for the employees, like that's obligated, then you have to like call and ask to add a business owner version.
Okay. And that would be through the insurance?
Yeah, I have a general insurance broker. And so like that helps me with my workman's comp, my disability, my unemployment, and then FMLA.
Okay.
Just a quick explainer here on the options that are available for a business owner, because as a business owner, your options are different. And so two of the main types of retirement accounts we see for small business owners are going to be a simple IRA and a SEP IRA. So in today's episode, she asked about the SEP IRA. And so SEP IRAs are available, and there's rules for all sorts of retirement plans, including the ones for small business owners. And so you have to cover any employee who has worked for the company for 3 of the past 5 years and is age 21 and older. As of 2024, employees whose annual compensation is less than $750 can be excluded, and that is the same amount for 2025. So the way it works is 25% of a participant's annual pay or 70,000, whatever is less, is allowed to be contributed. So the big difference between the SEP and the simple is it has a much higher contribution limit. The big difference is that you, as the employer, need to contribute on behalf of your employees for the percentage that you've decided. So, for instance, if you decided as the business owner to cover yourself at 10%, you're making 100,000, you're going to put 10% in. That's going to be 10,000, and you have an employee making 50,000, and it is 10% that you're doing, then you would put 5,000 in on behalf of your employee. So you are responsible for doing the entire amount, and your employee wouldn't be contributing. The simple IRA, I will say, works, if you're familiar with a 401k, works more similar to a 401k and is often the plan of choice when you have employees. And I will give you the breakdown. So simple IRAs are for businesses that are under 100 employees. Any employee earning at least 5,000 during any 2 preceding years and who is expected to earn 5,000 in the current year needs to be covered. Employers, so the business owner, are required to make matching or non-elective contributions to all eligible employees who are earning at least 5,000 during the year. The choices here are dollar for dollar matches up to 3% of compensation, and that is for employees that are contributing, or 2% non-elective contributions to all eligible employees. So the non-elective 2% means that if you have 3 employees and no one is participating, meaning they're not putting any of their own money into the simple IRA, you as the employer are still required to do 2% of their compensation into the plan. If you opt to do the 3% matching, they need to participate, therefore enroll and also contribute in order to receive that. The contribution limits on the simple IRA are much lower. And so that's the big difference between the SEP. The SEP has a much higher cap at 70,000 for 2025. And for 2025, for the simple IRA, it is $17,600. And a catch-up contribution can be added of $3,850 if you're age 50 to 59, $5,250 catch-up if you're between ages 60 and 63, and then $3,850 if you're age 64 and older. That is less than 25 employees. And then for employers with between 26 and 100 employees, the 2025 contribution limit is $16,500 with a catch-up contribution of $3,500 for ages 50 to 59, $5,250 between ages 60 and 63, and $3,500 if you're age 64 or older. Also, just like the SEP, it's immediately vested. So once the money goes in, it's immediately the employee. So I hope that clears it up. In this particular episode with Samantha, the SEP might work because of her employee structure. Oftentimes, though, we do find with business owners, depending on their employee structure, a lot of them lean towards the simple IRA because the contribution amount that's required of the employer is lower, but that all depends on employee structure and employee pay. So thank you for listening, and I hope this is helpful. Because there's a bunch of insurance you pay for the employees.
Right. Yeah, we have like our business insurance and our workers' comp, and we have a separate liability insurance policy. But I think there's one person that kind of set all that up. So
Yes, that's the person you call. Because the hard part is no one calls you. Like no one's like, they say like, you get the, you're going to be contributing to retirement for all California employees, but no one's like, oh, well, here's what you do if you're the business owner. There's this other thing over here you need to set up,
Right.
That's the tricky part. It's like you have to call and say, okay, so I set this up for the employees. Is there a business owner version anywhere that I need to also set up? And sometimes the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so you have, I think that's smart that you set aside, and she has 30,000 as well for her set aside.
I'm not sure what she has set aside, but I know she has some set aside.
Okay, perfect. And then are there any other savings accounts? We have the traditional, the Roth, and then the two emergency funds.
Yes. So I also have a brokerage account, just like regular investments. And I set that up as my kind of retirement account before we figure out how to do our business retirement account. And that had 29,000 in it.
Amazing. And then what about debt?
Debt. My husband and I don't have any debt.
Amazing.
We're really good savers, or I've made him a really good saver. So our next step is like the retirement planning and the future planning.
And then how old is your husband, and how much is he making a year?
So he is 52. So he'll be retiring before me. So that's our other sort of thing we have to figure out, is because I'm on his health insurance.
What's his target? And what did you say he's making a year?
Let's see. He makes 119,000 a year.
Okay, fantastic. And he has no debt.
He has no debt. No.
And then do you share with each other what you have saved? I know you said you keep the finances separate.
He has a separate savings account also.
Okay.
He has about like 80,000 in there.
Okay. And because he has a union job, he'll retire with a pension?
Yes. Yeah.
And then what is he thinking for age for retirement?
We're thinking like 68 or 70.
Okay.
I think it might have to be 70 because he got into his line of work a little bit later. Mm-hmm. He only started there like 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay, so then 52. And so you have about 16-year age difference, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so 70, I think 70 would make sense
Okay.
because you'd be about 54 then. If you're still running the business and you enjoy it, you could continue to do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yes, and then 70 would also be, as of right now, things are subject to change, but that would also be his max social security.
Okay.
And that would make sense because he has the higher on the books income. So therefore his social security most likely will be higher, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a married couple, I always like to try to stagger it so that one benefit is higher because that stays with the household. So should he predecease you, you would get his higher benefit.
Okay.
So 70 is the max benefit. And he's also has the higher income on the books, so therefore his benefit will be better.
Got it.
It could always swap, right? Because you're 36. So the business continues to grow, you have more on the books, that could always change, but using today's numbers.
Right.
Okay, so then how do you do your household expenses? We talked about the business, but your household expenses. You said you split them?
Yes, we split them.
Okay. And so do you want to give me what your share of expenses are?
Yeah. So my share of expenses is about like $2,500
Okay.
a month. And that's splitting the rent, the utilities, our entertainment going out, and anything we need for the house.
That feels low for the Bay Area.
It's very low.
Okay. I was expecting you to say 2,500 for rent, for your share of rent.
I've been in my apartment for almost 16 years.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a golden handcuff situation.
Okay.
But we are saving for a down payment. So on top of the expenses, we've been putting away like a fake mortgage each month. And so
Amazing.
each of us put away $2,000 a month. So we're saving 4,000 towards a future mortgage payment.
Okay, perfect. And where is that money? Is that in any of the numbers you've already given me?
No, that is a joint savings account we have, and right now it has 118,000 in it.
Oh, amazing. I was so worried you were going to be like, yeah, that's part of the 30. And I was like, oh no. Okay. So you have a joint account with 118. That's fantastic. But do you want to buy in the Bay Area?
We do.
Okay.
We've started to look at options, and that's the next thing is like figuring out the budget for the actual purchasing, because saving, right, it's still yours, you can still see it, you still feel like
Yep.
it's there, but
Yep.
the actual spending of the money, I just want to make sure we're fully prepared for that part of it.
Have you listened to my podcast before? Have you listened to some of the episodes about the house stuff?
Yes, yeah, and I hear other areas and I'm like, oh wow, that sounds.
So the tricky part is it sounds like you have like a dream of a situation here if your expenses for the month are 2,500.
Yeah. So if we purchase, our expenses will definitely double.
Yeah. So I would just like to say there's nothing wrong with renting, especially when you're saving that amount of money.
Okay.
Right. And so everyone says that you need to buy. I feel like that's the rhetoric. You don't need to buy. You just need to make sure that you've given yourself the optionality that should you want to buy in the future, that you've set yourself up financially to not be priced out. That's what I'll say. But
Okay.
if you're the issue with people with renting where they get priced out is they're living on everything they're bringing in and then rent gets high and their income doesn't adjust enough and then they're getting priced out of renting and they've never saved enough to buy, right? That's the scenario where it gets really tricky. But
Right.
if you're saving 4,000 a month because of this and you end up setting aside, we'll just say $300,000 and we'll say you invest that and decide, we're comfortable with that gives you the opportunity to buy in the future should you choose to, right? That's the house fund. You could also decide, our life is really comfortable. We like having flexibility with our income and not having the maintenance and expense of a property.
Mm-hmm. That's what we've started to see now. And it's making the dream a little bit not as shiny, right? Like, oh, there's the insurance cost and the house upkeep and looking at a house like that you want to purchase, but then there's immediate repairs listed in the disclosures that have to
Hmm.
be dealt with.
And that's your weekends. Like that's
Yeah.
nights and weekends. Like I have a can of paint here and I had, went to the paint shop on 1 gallon. I got it on sale. It was $75, one
Mm,
gallon. And it should have been 100 something. Paint's
wow.
expensive. So, people say, yeah, but when you sell your house, you make a lot of money. You do. But when you think about if you actually paid yourself for, driving to the paint store on Saturday, because that's not exactly what I wanted to do with my Saturday.
Uh-huh.
Um, Maybe if you enjoy painting, but I hired someone to paint, but I had to go figure out because the color I wanted wasn't there. So he sent me over there. If you think about all the time and money that goes into it, yeah, some people do great, but it's just like the stock market, not guaranteed.
Yeah.
There's people that have taken a bath on their house. Not, I mean, it hasn't happened in a while, but doesn't mean it can't happen again. So I just wouldn't get caught up in society's pressure of buying a house. There's
Uh-huh.
also a lot to be said for not being house poor and financially estranged monthly and like calling somebody when something breaks in the apartment and it's their problem.
That's true.
So it's completely up to you. I think what you're doing is the right thing though. You also do want to save so that you give yourself the option that if you want to buy, you can buy. And you say maybe we do want to own a piece of real estate, but the Bay Area is too expensive and it's going to make our monthly overhead too uncomfortable, right? You might say it's not worth it here, but maybe we buy a smaller weekend place somewhere we could drive up to and it's not going to cost as much and we could keep our rent because that's the other thing with high cost of living areas is maybe primary, not to say you don't say it's your primary, but buying in the city maybe isn't your best option. Maybe buying 2 hours north, like a little bungalow for the weekends is the better option and sticking with this unicorn of a rent situation makes more
Uh-huh.
sense.
Yeah. So with like this money we're saving right now, it's just in a high yield savings account.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not planning to use it within the next year or so, do you recommend moving it somewhere?
I would say at least, so I think in the stock market, you have to be prepared to leave it in there for 2 to 4 years.
Okay.
So if you're still not sure about the house thing, I definitely would leave it in a high yield savings. If you're flexible and if the market goes down, you're just like, well, we'll just wait. The house thing is an idea, but we're not completely sold on it and we're flexible, then you could, but we can't control, you can't control the stock market. You don't know if you put it in, what's going to happen.
Right.
As long that the thing that mitigates the risk of the stock market is time, right? So if you have a good time horizon to have it in there, then that mitigates the risk. But so if you said we're definitely buying a house in 2 years, I'd be like, nope, it should be in a high yield savings account. But if you say we're thinking about it, but we also may decide to rent, and if the market went down, we would just continue to rent because we're locked in on this great deal, then you could consider it. Or you could split the difference, say we'll put half to work in the market and then the other half, and we're only going to buy, we won't move money out unless the market's up.
That makes sense. That's a good idea.
I always like to compromise. It's like from like a psychology standpoint, it's so much easier. It's like, okay, well, then we have half the money saved, the other half is invested, could make some money. You play your average, and then you also come in with a mindset of, if the market's down, we'll just wait to buy a house.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the stock market is still a little scary to me. I mean, I have these like accounts, and right now they're just self managed, but I feel like I would like someone to look at them and recommend. Do you think that's like a check in with someone every couple of months, or is it good to have an investment manager, or are the robo advisors okay?
So I'm going to sell against the robo advisors because I find a lot of mistakes with the robo advisors.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's a robot, you know. So you're eligible to do a Roth, but I see people who are doing Roths who aren't eligible, stuff like that. So I don't like robo. I think you probably do a better job than a robot because it's your money, you care, right? You're paying attention. But what I would say is there's nothing wrong with hiring somebody, and I don't think it needs to be quarterly at all. I think it could be like once a year. You could hire somebody to review, and there are advisors who work on an hourly basis or a flat fee where they don't manage your money, but they'll look everything over and you pay them a fee. I think that sounds like it might be up your alley, and you just do it once a year and they go over everything for you. I think that having advice is valuable. Obviously, I'm in the business, I'm a CFP, so I do think the advice is valuable. The robos I don't love. I just haven't, from what I've like when I've looked this stuff over, I think you probably would do a better job.
Okay.
But I think it's worth, with your husband and you have an age gap and you mentioned maybe family planning and he's going to maybe retire. He's not terribly far off from retirement. I mean, the more you have an idea of what you're working towards, the better, right? The more time, the easier it is to plan. So I think it'd be worth hiring someone. And I would say you want to look for somebody who has the planning designation, right? Who's like, I would look for a CFP, a certified financial planner, somebody
Okay.
who's a fiduciary. And then it sounds like you're doing a good job on your own. So if you don't want them to manage the money, what I would do is look for someone you can just hire who would do it for like a fee.
Got it.
You pay them
That's
like an hourly fee
yeah.
to look everything over.
Okay. That flat fee is important to look out for, right? Because some of them do like a percentage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's fine. That's what I do. That's how I run my business. But I work predominantly with retirees where things are going to be a bit more complex and they don't want to manage their own money. You've seen
Mm-hmm.
like you've done a good job. I mean, you have no debt, you have good savings. I mean, feels like you have everything pretty organized. So I would say I would make sure you have a good accountant for the business who can also do your personal return. And then I would look to hire a CFP professional for, on a consultative basis to review stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with paying a fee if you're getting it. That's what I'll say. If you don't need the fee, right? If you're doing it fine on your own, well then that's great. You don't need to pay the fee. It's just like I hire professionals for certain things. I could probably do some stuff myself, and I've chosen to outsource that. So just decide if you want to outsource it or not. But if you're saying I don't really know that I need to outsource the whole thing, need someone to run it for me, I just want to get a second opinion. That's available too, and that sounds like probably more up your alley.
Yeah. And then, so my husband has a bit of savings now. I've had him start saving, and
Did he
his
save before you? He keeps saying I got him to save.
he saved a little bit, but he also wasn't in the job position he is in now.
Okay.
So he's able to save because his income increased more, but our
Okay.
did not increase. And rather than
Always the key. That's always the key is the low expenses.
he would just kind of leave it in his checking account, and then the money ends up making its way into some expense that you don't really need. And so I was like, why don't you just automatically move some over, and that way you don't see it just goes away, but it's in a separate savings account. And so we started doing that, and that helped.
Good.
And he has a TIA
Yep.
also for retirement. And right now he's putting like, I think $1,200 a month in there. Do you recommend he do more because of where he's at? Like,
yeah. So he's saving $1,200 a month pre-tax out of his
paycheck.
So that's 14,400. So he should probably be closer to, because he has 80,000 saved, right? Does he have anything else in retirement?
No, he doesn't have another retirement account.
Okay. And then do you know what his pension is going to be?
We looked that up yesterday.
Oh, you did? Fantastic.
Yeah. So right now it's at $3,800 monthly.
A month. Is that single?
Oh.
Yeah. So here's usually how the pensions go. The highest best benefit is only on him.
Okay.
So if he covers you as his spouse, the benefit amount will go down, but then he would get money for his life. And should he predecease you, you would get paid a percentage depending on either the 100%, 50%, 75%. You would get paid for your life. So it covers both lives. That's what you want to look at.
Okay.
The popular ones are called either Restore or Pop-Ups. And what that means is if your husband takes a pension amount for $3,000 in order to cover you for your lifetime, if God forbid you get hit by a bus, he would go back up to close to $3,800. because now his beneficiary is no longer there. So then it would either pop back up to single life or restore to single life. So those are the ones I would look at, like what's available for either restore or pop up. Everybody uses a different name for it, but do you understand the concept? If he covers you and then you pass away, he would go back as if he chose single.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that's just something we have to check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they should be able to give you based on a projected retirement date, or even you could say the retirement date is now, but if you got like more of a projected retirement date and say he's been there 8 years and he's going to work, 16 more years. So he's, over the 20-year marker and at retirement, what would the projected benefit amount be, right? If he's 68 and collecting then. And then you'll see the best benefit will be single life. But if he collects it for 3 years and then he gets hit by a bus, it's over. That's it, the end of the pension.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a risky move, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't get anything.
Okay. So would that be something we have to go in and change? Or is that like once
so there's once you retire. So it's a one-time election. You cannot alter it. So once he files the pension paperwork, when he goes to retire, that's when you would elect this. And then once it's done, that's it. There's no changing it. It's a permanent election. I had a friend of mine call. She went home to take care of her dad. He passed away. And he wasn't in a good financial situation, but he had a pension. And so she moved home to live with him to take care of him when he passed. And she called me and she was like, they pulled back his pension check. She notified, I don't even think she notified him that he died. I think they were notified that he passed away. Uh-huh. And she was like, they took the pension check out of the checking account. And I was like, yeah, he's deceased. And she's like, well, but I should get the pension. And I was like, I don't think so. I was like, it depends on what he elected. So she called the company. I was like, there's nothing you can do. Whatever he filed when he retired is permanent. Can't change it.
Wow.
So from a planning standpoint, though, it's important to know what he would be eligible for. And you could ask for a not 68, but like if he were to retire at 62, which is 10 years from now, what would he get? So then you can plan and you can kind of see what those projections are. But the pension, until it's elected, that's when you would file the paperwork and choose how he wants to receive it. Like, I'm going to cover my spouse 100%, pop up, restore, whatever it is. But yeah, it's a permanent election, cannot be changed.
Okay.
But it's a very important piece with retirement planning.
Yeah, I'll have him check in with some of his coworkers or people who have just retired. I know they all
check in with the benefits people, not the colleagues. You get a lot of misinformation from colleagues. Check in with there's a lot of misinformation circulating on the I'll call it the water cooler. He should go to the benefits people, the people who run the benefits.
Okay, got it.
But that'll be good. So he'll have a pension. So given that he has a pension, that's fantastic, right? So we'll just use the number of $38,000 a month times 12. So that's $45,000 a year. That's like having $1 million bond paying 4.5%. If you think about it from that way. So that's fantastic. So he's doing fine because he's also saving. So he's union workers in on W-2. So he's going to have Social Security. So he could maybe have another $2,000 to $3,000 a month just with that, right? So that his Social Security gets up to $3,000 at 70. That's 68, give or take 100 gross right there. But he's going to have to work later to get to the 70 number for Social Security, or not collect till 70. And then he's saving. If he can afford it, if your expenses are low now, you mentioned family planning, then maybe bump it up a little bit for the time being, because life could get more expensive and it could be harder to save more, So I don't think I'll ever discourage saving more for retirement. No one's ever walked into my office and been like, shoot, I think I have too much saved. It hasn't happened.
Okay. And do you recommend I try to get him onto a Roth IRA also?
Roths are really nice in retirement. I think the biggest complaint I get from people who are retired who did a good job, it's not that they wish they had less money. They wish they were paying less in tax. Get a lot of complaint about taxes.
Okay.
I would say weekly. I get
Wow.
multiple complaints about taxes. So you're in this sweet spot because of this unicorn rent situation you have, that you have the flexibility to say, you know what, maybe we'll do Roth because we don't really need the tax break because we're living pretty comfortably.
Right.
I think it gives you freedom to do like everything in your life. Like you can just pay for a vacation. You don't have to put on a credit card.
Yeah, that's the thing with running the business right now is like I've been saving a lot, but we're trying to find time to go enjoy a little bit of it. So that'll be next year's plan.
Plan to be able to take it. That's like the hardest part in a running a business is taking a vacation.
Yeah.
I think it took me like 7 years. So you'll be,
Oh, okay, I'm almost there.
yeah, you're almost there. I think it took me 7 years where I took like a longer vacation, not like not like a Friday and a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think 2023, I think was the first time I didn't take my laptop. I actually don't remember if I took it or not. So that would have been 10 years with where I think I got my first vacation without a laptop.
Wow. Yeah,
It's not a big deal to carry. I mean, it's not the worst thing to carry it, but every once in a while you're like, well, I wonder what it'd be like to like not take my laptop with me.
yeah, it has this whole other thing with it. Like we go camping for 2 nights and we go deep, deep into the forest. And so I tell my business partner, I'm like, I'm going to have no service for 2 days. So just so you know, and that feels like such a big,
Like a luxury.
Yeah.
Because it is. It's nice to like completely disconnect, I think. But when you have, there's pros and cons to everything in life. And so, I mean, I enjoy owning a business, but that is definitely, I think the thing. You're like, oh, you could take whatever vacation you want. You go away a lot. I was like, yeah, I go away with my laptop. You could. I'm still working. I just happen to be working at a different location. So that's good. So talk to me a little bit about the family planning.
So it's just at the very beginning of family planning. It's kind of like a if it happens, that's great
Okay.
situation. And besides, just saving a little bit of money, I don't quite know what else to plan for. I think our health insurance is pretty good.
Okay.
I don't know if you recommend like checking in on those benefits.
Yeah, you could check in on the benefits. You could see, what they cover for fertility, what they cover for pregnancy is usually covered. It's usually giving birth that can be expensive depending on the insurance coverage. That's where people
Okay.
get kind of hit. And then if you need it like fertility assistance, that's not always covered. I would say it's more often covered with like a tech company. So I don't know about with a union job if they would have fertility coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I think your best situation is putting yourself in a good financial situation, which you're in, right?
Yeah.
Having a solid emergency fund, not having debt, having done a really good job and planning for retirement. Because then if you have a child, it just adjusts your budget and it can adjust it significantly, especially with daycare costs, right? Or childcare costs. That's the big number that would eat into that extra. And so I would definitely keep that in mind when you're considering purchasing, because I will say the one thing I think that when you're going to qualify for a mortgage, they don't ask you is, do you plan on having children and have you factored in childcare costs? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
another mortgage.
That's right.
That's where it gets really dicey because especially if you have more than one child, you could be like 3,000 a month.
Yeah. Okay.
And you could swing that now. You'd actually have no issue with it now. But if you had a mortgage, then that's where it would get really tight.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll have to look at our numbers again and factor in that.
Yeah, daycare and childcare costs is the factor that I think really throws people for a loop, and where I think it gets really stressful is you go into that and you have credit card debt, or you're like kind of just breaking even, and so like anything extra like a birthday party or something comes up random, it goes on a credit card because you like don't know where the money's going every month, because sometimes people come on the podcast and I'm like, okay, so it doesn't seem like you have anything extra. Like every month, it's like everything is spent, nothing is getting saved. We have a bit of credit card debt. And then if you have a child on top of that, and it can snowball, right? Because you just have more expenses, the same income, right? Which we didn't really know what was happening. And now we throw more expenses on it, can get really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you're in a good position. That's why with your husband, I would say I would save a little extra now, save a little more, because if you do decide to have a family, then you can always tone that down a little during the expensive, where you need more childcare coverage.
Okay. Great. Yeah, that might be a whole other conversation of how to budget for a future child.
I think the biggest expense is going to be that what would be needed for hospital, like that could be somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 for the hospital part of
Mhm.
it, and then childcare cost. Gosh, we've heard ranges on the show. I think like affordable is like 1,500 a month, but then we've also heard like 2,000 a month for childcare, and then if you have another one, you get some places give a discount, some don't really give a discount because like newborn is more expensive than 2-year-old, right? So
Right. The Bay Area is probably on the higher end, the 2000 end, I believe.
yeah.
So,
And it's temporary. So that's why if you put yourself in a good financial position and you say, okay, we can swing a baby where we are. So we're going to do that, you know, and then maybe we're going to save extra before we have the first child, and we maybe want a second child, and we know it's going to be like really uncomfortable for 2 years when they're both in childcare or something,
mm-hmm.
and you plan for it.
Okay. Yeah, until they're in school.
Yeah, and then you might need aftercare, but maybe you could only teach dance in the morning, and then you could cover afternoons. I don't know. You could maybe figure that out, but I think the most expensive is when they have to go to the childcare when they're little before school.
Right. And those seem to not be the most flexible. Like if you sign up for childcare, they want you to sign up
You
week.
have locked in a spot.
Yeah.
That's it, whether you go or not. And then they cancel a lot. Like my assistant here, I think they closed for like the solar eclipse. I was like, what?
What?
Yeah, I
What?
swear. Yeah. It was like an early closure for that. And then one day it rained a lot. They were closed. No, it was like there's like a lot. They take their own spring breaks. I'm always just like, I want to be on this schedule. I want that schedule. I want the daycare schedule. You're not on that schedule. I do not work that schedule. So yeah, but you're locked in. So, and then if your child's sick, they obviously don't go. You still pay. No refund there.
Right.
Yeah. And there's different ones. Like my sister is a government employee, and so she picked a daycare, which is probably more expensive, but it goes on the government schedule. So, no solar eclipse days, because she's an attorney. She has to be, can't be like, so I guess, Judge, I can't be at court today. There's a solar eclipse. So she had to pick a daycare that aligned with her work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot to think about. But what I would say from a planning standpoint is I think putting yourself in a good financial position and being aware of what the cost will be give
Mm-hmm.
you a real leg up, because I think a lot of people go into it and don't know what it's going to be, or haven't put themselves or in a financial position. Like maybe they start out negative and then have a child. And that just feels stressful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't like stress. I mean, nobody likes stress, but I
Yeah.
really handle it very well.
So yeah, but you've already put yourself in a great position. You have no debt. You're building a business, your revenue is growing, which is fantastic, and you're building that. You have a great amount saved. Your husband has money saved and no debt. He's also going to have a pension, which my perfect retirement plan is a pension, at least one pension, and then 2 social securities with your own savings. That's a very comfortable situation.
Thank you so much. This is
Yeah.
wonderful. Uh,
Do you have any other questions?
I not at the moment. I know I always end up coming up with something like 2 days later, but I think you answered all my questions right now. My sister got me hooked on your podcast, and so I've been listening for a few months, and I love hearing all the different situations, and then like being like, oh, I've never heard of that before, and looking into it. So Thank you so much for doing this and for talking to me today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being a listener. And thank you to all of our loyal listeners. And if you like the show, share. You never know. And yeah, we do this. Amy, Alex, and I do this on the side. This is to help women improve their finances, because it's so important, I think, to have control over your finances, because it gives you control over the rest of your life. So for all of our lovely listeners, if you want to get in touch with us, I think we might be done with guest slots for the year, but we'll be recording guests for next year, for 2026. You can follow along on Instagram, or you can send us a message on www.futurerichpodcast.com. Time for our disclaimer. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance references are historical and do not guarantee future results. Make sure that you consult with your own legal, tax, and/or financial advisor before making any decisions.